Sky blue, water wet, WWE stars working hurt. If you are an in-ring performer in the sports entertainment business, you accept from the start that your daily life will include at least some level of pain. Wrestlers are conditioned to work through discomfort and live up to the old maxim of the show must always go on. Sometimes they take it to extremes though and work not only through the normal soreness, but during times where they have broken bones, torn tendons, and all other manner of physical ailments not conducive to being slammed on wood and steel. I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic Wrestling, and these are 10 WWE stars who worked through serious injuries. Join us. Number 10, Rey Mysterio. It's incredible enough that Rey Mysterio is still going strong, some 30 plus years into a revolutionary career defined by an innovative, high-risk style, but it's even more amazing when you consider his extensive injury list. The Masked Man has had the most trouble with his knackered knees, a consequence of all those springboards and Hurricane Ranas, and has had countless surgeries on the left one dating back to the late 90s. Mysterio routinely messed up his ACL, and when he tried to gut it out and keep going on the road, it would inevitably necessitate another go under the knife. Rey desperately needed the op for most of 2006, but opted instead to tough it out and postponed the procedure as he was in the midst of the biggest push of his career. As World Heavyweight Champion and then in a top storyline with Chavo Guerrero, Mysterio battled through the pain in order to squeeze the maximum out of the run until the wheels finally fell off. He did it again in 2010 and 2011 when he put off ACL surgery for over a year. By the time the doctors got in there, they discovered that there was no more cartilage and the inside was bone on bone. Number 9, Mr. Perfect. Mr. Perfect could do it all. Bowl a perfect game, score a touchdown, get a hole-in-one, you name it, Curt Hennig's alter ego could do it. While the Mr. Perfect character was flawless, Hennig himself was very much human and sustained injuries like everyone else in the grap game, including a debilitating one to his back in the run-up to his Intercontinental title defense against Bret Hart at SummerSlam 1991. Going into the bout, Curt had a bulging disc and a broken tailbone and was kept out of the ring besides a couple of easy squash matches where he didn't have to do much in the run-up to it. This ensured that his woes didn't get any worse, but he was still in excruciating pain when he and the Hitman locked up at Madison Square Garden. It's incredible that Hennig was able to get through any match given the circumstances, but that he was able to have a 5-star classic that launched Bret's career is simply perfect, isn't it? Hennig actually needed to temporarily retire after the match due to his injuries. Number 8, The Undertaker. Truth be told, there likely wasn't a day during his phenomenal 30-year WWE career that The Undertaker wasn't working with some sort of ache or pain. The dead man often had to take time off to get surgeries and convalesce, but he also soldiered on far more than most, working through all manner of very serious injuries. One of the most serious was the fractured orbital bone that he suffered in late 1995 when King Mabel crushed his face in a leg drop landing gone wrong. With headline talent scarce and the company struggling financially, Taker felt as though he needed to stay in the trenches and continue to work, albeit with a slight modification. He required a protective mask to do so safely and had one custom made Phantom of the Opera style. The Undertaker wore the mask for several months until Bret Hart removed it during their WWE title match at the 1996 Royal Rumble. Unfortunately for the Phenom, he would suffer the same injury at the hands of Rey Mysterio, of all people, in 2010. It has left him with double vision to this day. Number 7, John Cena. John Cena's WWE career has been characterized by many things, including his superhuman ability to come back from major injuries. Torn pecs, broken necks, you name it, it is no big deal for Big Match John, who rehabs like a mofo and makes it his mission to return to the ring as soon as possible, knowing full well just how important he is to the organization that made his name. Ever the pro, Cena has also worked through his share of hurt, including at SummerSlam 2013. Tasked with main eventing the pay-per-view and defending his WWE title against Daniel Bryan, Super Cena practically shrugged off a torn triceps to contest an absolute barn burner, putting over D-Bry clean in the middle after a long and hard-fought match. Cena was wearing a support during the bout, concealing a nasty baseball-sized bump near his elbow, which he revealed on the post-SummerSlam Raw. After telling the WWE universe that he couldn't put off surgery any longer while praising new champ Bryan for beating him the night before, Cena had the operation and was projected to be out from 4 to 6 months. Freak that he is, John Cena was back in 2. Number 6, Jeff Hardy. This might come as a shock to you, but apparently falling off ladders and getting put through tables on a nightly basis isn't great for the body. Jeff Hardy has paid the price for a long and spectacular career filled with death-defying moments, despite weirdly having very few major surgeries. The accumulative wear and tear is what typically caused the charismatic enigma to burn out, and was usually the reason he would leave WWE after a few years on the road. At no point was this more evident than in the summer of 2009, when Hardy was the top babyface on SmackDown and feuding with CM Punk over the World Heavyweight title. Jeff had been going hard since his 2006 comeback and was in desperate need of some time away, suffering from chronic pain in his neck, back and knees, as well as developing restless leg syndrome. He had signed a short-term extension to finish his program with Punk, but by the time he left the company, he was a physical wreck. Naturally, his 2 final outings were TLC and cage matches. Sadly, Hardy was forced to mask the pain with increasing amounts of pain-killing drugs, a fact that came out just days after he said goodbye to the WWE Universe. Number 5, Billy Gunn. After a scrapped singles push in the summer of '99, Billy Gunn was put back with the Road Dogg, and the New Age Outlaws both began to experience a change in fortunes as they reformed DX and recaptured the tag titles. Regrettably, just as they were getting going again and gearing up to defend the straps against the Dudleys at No Way Out 2000, Billy blew out his rotator cuff. It happened 5 days before the pay-per-view at a SmackDown taping when Gunn hit Bubba with an impressive Fameasser through a table. Luckily for Mr. Ass, the pay-per-view showdown was kept short and his partner was able to carry the load, with Gunn's involvement wisely kept to a minimum. But still, he was in extreme pain on the night and could barely move his left arm, so good on him for even showing up for the hot tag and hitting his finisher. Towards the match's end, Bubba hit Billy with a lead pipe to excuse his subsequent absence, but the truth was Gunn probably should have already been on the shelf, yet he sucked it up and appeared as advertised. Number 4, Kurt Angle. The man synonymous with the phrase broken freaking neck was on borrowed time the moment his pro wrestling journey began. Despite the lingering issue of his dodgy neck, Kurt Angle went hard and fast in his first few years on the WWE roster, working a demanding schedule whilst bell to bell, never giving anything less than 100%. Something had to give eventually, and that something was the Olympic hero's neck, which broke when Brock Lesnar sent him into the turnbuckle with extreme force at No Way Out 2003. Experiencing those familiar feelings of numbness in his arms and fingers, and advised to sit out his upcoming WWE title defense against the next big thing at WrestleMania 19, Kurt declined vacating the belt he had fought so hard to hold and vowed to close the show on the grandest stage. Angle knew going into the match that one wrong bump could actually leave him in a wheelchair, but he miraculously got through it, and in fact, it was Lesnar that most people were worrying about after his erroneous shooting star press. Once the adrenaline wore off after the show, Kurt's body completely broke down and he went for surgery 10 days later. Number 3, Steve Austin. The moment Steve Austin was spiked on his head at SummerSlam 1997, his life and career were changed forever. Stone Cold was fast on his way to becoming the top star in the industry, and the neck injury he suffered that night, which was millimeters away from causing paralysis, wouldn't prevent that. If anything, it helped speed it up, as Austin was forced out of the ring for a while and got over even more due to his promos and segments than if he had been wrestling. The incident did, however, leave him with lasting chronic neck pain, and though he underwent major fusion surgery in 1999, he continued to work before and after the surgery despite the excruciating pain he experienced on a daily basis. Not only was his neck a mess, but his back and knees were also shot by the time he took his ball and went home in the summer of 2002. When he returned for his final few matches months later, he just about made it through them and was actually hospitalized with severe dehydration after having what was akin to a heart attack the night before his WrestleMania 19 swan song. Number 2, Shawn Michaels. One of the most spectacular and hard-working performers in the history of the business, Shawn Michaels went out every night with the intention of stealing the show. Living up to his showstopper nickname came at a cost though, as years of bumping his backside off wore his body down. The tipping point for the Heartbreak Kid, who had already worked through plenty of serious injuries beforehand, came at the 1998 Royal Rumble when his back collided with a casket during his WWE showdown with The Undertaker. It looked innocuous enough at the time, but days later Michaels could hardly walk, and after speaking with specialists, it was determined that he would need career-ending back surgery to fix it. Still, Shawn had to drop the strap to the incumbent Steve Austin at WrestleMania 14, which he did admirably, albeit with agony etched across his face. He was miraculously able to come back for a redeeming second act, but he still had to push through the pain barrier on occasion, including at Taboo Tuesday 2004, where he wrestled with a torn meniscus suffered on Raw the previous night. Number 1. Cody Rhodes. I thought it was an interesting, somewhat bold creative decision to book Barney the Dinosaur in the main event of Hell in a Cell 2022. Oh no, wait, that purple thing was actually Cody Rhodes, who headlined the premium live event with a pec that was torn off the bone. The American Nightmare hadn't long been back in the WWE fold and had built some serious momentum when he encountered the setback. The pec was reportedly partially torn in a brawl with Seth Rollins, and then Cody tore it completely while lifting weights afterwards. WWE told Rhodes that he didn't have to compete as scheduled, but credit where credit is due, the madman actually decided to go through with it. Not only did he go through with it, but he put on one hell of a show, no pun intended, in a blistering headline bout that had commentator Corey Graves sounding genuinely concerned for his battered colleague. Between this, the flaming table, and the neck tattoo, I'm starting to think that Cody has a thing for abusing his body.